Check, check, check. One. Hello, 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 Oregon. All right. So my name is Matthew, and hello. I'm going to unplug this. Don't like hearing myself talk. Welcome to Tell Oregon. Yes, come on, let's hear it. I think some of you guys might be wondering what is Tell Oregon, and I might get to that in a second because I was kind of curious of that myself. And from the turnout, from what I heard about Oregon, I'm not so sure about that. I heard that a couple of things about it may be a little godless, but we know there's a lot of cities and a lot of towns across the nation and across the world that are like that right now. We're seeing a lot of that happen now. And I don't want to get preachy. I don't want to get on any kind of soapbox because we've got plenty of that for you guys this evening, coming from wonderful Clayton Jennings. But I do want to say something about the individuals that put this event together, because you guys are extremely fortunate. It takes a tremendous step of faith to do what these two have done. He's one over to the side there. For Josh and Michele Ronk to put this together, I don't know how many times you guys have thought about just doing something for the Lord, for your family, for anybody, and just doing it. And these two just put this together, and you guys are going to reap the rewards of this. You guys are going to hear stuff tonight that's really going to touch your heart. You're going to hear things tonight that are going to touch people at your work, at your school, anywhere else. So this is a really, really special event. The thing that really got me is Tell Oregon. And at first I didn't really know what it was because obviously Clayton Jennings, who some of you guys know and follow, is the Tell the World. And the Tell Oregon for me is, what do we need to tell Oregon? What does Oregon need to hear? Is that something that, obviously the Lord had put into Josh and to Michele when they thought about it? Maybe that's something that we can keep asking ourselves this evening and come away with some things that are said from some of the testimonies that you may hear. I don't want to get into what Michelle's going to do because it is fantastic, and I think it's really, really going to touch some of you here. Some of you it might touch personally. Some of you might have family members that will relate to it. But I want you guys to know that why I am so thrilled to be involved, because it's for one thing, and that is to show God's love. Plain and simple. Nobody here. Nobody here is to impress anything upon anybody. Nobody is here to try to say you're doing something wrong. You may be. That's up for you. But this is about God's love. This is about embracing a way of life, about living for somebody other than yourselves, about putting other people in front of you. What does Oregon need to hear? What do we need to tell Oregon? I think a lot of it's going to be heard tonight. And with that, I think we have a video that we would like to start the evening with. Can we do the video and pull the lights down, please?
I just remember going through one of the hardest times of my life and being a part of a church. We would go to church, but I would have to sit outside on the benches on the outside and not go inside because of the things I was going through. But that looked like I was a sinner that didn't want to come inside the church pews and just stayed outside, but that's where I was comfortable. It was scary for me to go inside. Like, I had some kind of phobia about it. Don't know exactly why, but I was scared. So that looked very awful to them. And I just remember being in the church pew sometimes, but looking at them and like the whites of their eyes were speaking she's come unglued. Just always feeling judged there. Not in a place, not how I should feel with the kind of things that I was going through. I just remember wanting so badly to help others that were probably just like me somewhere, even though I don't know them or don't know where they are. I just know that other people are going through that, and I just know that I want to help them not feel like the way I did, the way my family did, when we didn't exactly even know what was going on, but we knew it was something very bad that didn't deserve that kind of love and turned away by a church. So it took us a long time to get back into a church to feel comfortable to be not judged by them. I don't know, the stigma in the church today is a very scary, sad thing that all maybe not all churches are going to face at some time, but it's a problem the churches are scared to deal with. And I don't mean all churches, but a lot of churches are facing this problem where they're scared to talk about mental illness, because if they talk about mental illness, it's like they're scared that they're giving people a ticket to sin. If you have a fear problem, if we call it a mental illness, then we're giving you a ticket to sin. It's like they're so scared to admit that there is a real mental illness, that there is something that does control the brain, and that they're not sinning. And the kind of problems like that I face, I've always felt like I'm looked at as sinner in a church because I have a thinking problem. I have a fear problem. I have anxiety. I have all these things that people call sin. And to person A, who doesn't have the kind of disorders that I have, it is sin. And then the person like me that is diagnosed with anxiety disorders and has fear problems and dealt with OCD, eating disorders, all these things, that's thinking of the brain. The brain is sick. And the brain is no different than if someone had cancer, or if someone walked in a church with a broken leg, they would love on them. But if you say your brain is sick, they're just sinning. They're just looking for an excuse to sin. And if we admit that as a church, they're scared. They're scared people just are going to get a ticket to sin. And there's a problem. You don't know how to distinguish the two from each other. So it's just not our place as Christians to decide who's sick and who's not sick. It's for the doctors to decide, and if someone says that they have a disorder or if something's wrong with them, it's our calling from God. It's in us, if we have the Holy Spirit, just to love them, not decide if they're really sinning or not. That stuff is not shouldn't be there. You should love them and love all, and love them, not look for a way not to love because they get to sin more than you, or what is that? Why do people think that way? I've lived through it for so long where people think I'm just sinning, and it breaks my heart, and it makes you, it doesn't make you closer to God when people just look at you like you're just an excuse maker. It doesn't help your walk with God. You're just pushing these kind of people away. I felt so far from God sometimes, but I didn't, because God is all I had. I didn't really, I knew what they were thinking wasn't true. It broke my heart, but I knew what they were thinking. It's not true. And that's the only thing that kept me going, is because I know it's not true. I know God knows it's not true. It's just me and God. And I know there's other people like that. And I just want to help those people. I want to help those families that are going through this, that families are getting torn apart because that wife or that husband is getting called a sinner or just not a Christian or this horrible person that needs to change, but really they could be the closest to God, but they just have a brain disorder. I wanna see those people get loved more. I'm doing this. I'm writing every pain I've ever gone through, and so many songs, the deepest heartfelt emotions I felt when I was all alone, just with God. I'm doing this to help those people so they know that they're not alone, because they're alone, but they need to know that there's other people like them, and God's with them. And God's not going to leave them, even if other people tear them down. God's not going to leave them. And there's other people like me that love them. And we need to help the churches love the sick and not look for ways not to love them. We need to talk about mental illness. We need to love those people.
Hi guys, thanks for coming, and thanks for coming to see Clayton and to hear about my story. My name is Michele Ronk, and it's been okay. My name is Michele Ronk, and it's been a dream to stand up and talk about this hard stuff called mental illness. I don't know if you've seen or heard about this little book called Understanding Spiritual Gifts. It's a book that goes into great detail about the teaching in the Bible about spiritual gifts and figuring out what gift you were given and how to best use it and understand it. With the help of that book and our pastor, we have figured out that I am a prophet. While my husband is a mercy, that's about as opposite as you can get. So let me just say we complement each other a lot. So here I am speaking about things like this that need to be talked about because that's what prophets do. They say it is, they say how it is, proclaim truth, expose sin, confront Christians and issues. So basically, fasten your seatbelts. In the summer of 8th grade, I started going through something called an eating disorder. By 10th grade, I was hospitalized from it. My heart rate was too low, and I was scary skinny. I was going to die without that hospital stay. I got better for a while, but by my senior year, it was back. After all the stuff I had already gone through, counseling, getting my body healthier, teeth work, learning new ways, it came back. I was back to square one. That was just who I was going to be. It was going to be my life forever. I was an eating disorder. I was never going to amount to anything else. It was impossible, and I accepted that tragedy, and I accepted that lie. I was not a Christian yet. I would hang pictures up on my wall that said, "Stop throwing up." I wanted it to stop. I hated everything about it. I would just cry and cry. But God has a way of giving you what you need and not what you may think you need. I met who is now my husband of almost 12 years. We hit it off, and our lives were a lot alike. We weren't saved. We were together before marriage, and we had a baby. But God's grace was greater than my sin. We wanted to get married, so we met with a pastor to marry us, and his requirements were to have premarital classes before we decided to marry. And he shared the gospel with us the first time we sat down with him, and that's when we were both saved. We realized we really knew nothing about God and gave our life to Jesus Christ. We understood it. We were happy. But later things started creeping up in me that were very hard to deal with, especially when you don't know and understand what's going on. I was having major panic attacks, major anxiety, major fears, major. But I was a Christian in a very conservative church, a very great church speaking on the truth in the Bible. We loved it. We had great friends, but I was not a Christian who was truly saved in their eyes. It started to look like my husband would go to them for help. This is what Michelle's doing. What do I do? Every time he hung up that phone or left that place, he came home With a little more, you're a sinner. In his eyes each time, over and over again. They were filling his head with how much I'm sinning each time, and that this is a spiritual issue with her. The bitterness built up. I wasn't sick, and I was just a horrible sinner who won't stop sinning, kind of thing. They wouldn't baptize us, and that was a big joke when we asked. We started basically hating each other. Josh and I did not have each other or the help or love from the one place we needed it most. But God was holding on to me in those nights of the loneliest tears that Josh was going to leave me and the babies for good. All I had was my kids to keep going for. I had God, I had Jesus to scream out to please help me. I got diagnosed with anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and OCD. Josh started learning more about it, understanding it more, and realized even with the medical diagnosis, the church wasn't going to take it for what it is, and we left. Not a lot of people understood it. Some people even said, I don't understand how she's sick, as our world had been crumbling down for a long time. Nobody really understood it because it's not an understandable disease still to this day. Anxiety disorders are frightening, not something that's so easy to dismiss. No matter the facts that are sitting right in front of you, it's the mind against the mind. Normally, anxiety can be a helpful tool to help get through a stressful situation. It's related to the so-called fight or flight response. When the danger passes and the physical responses and the heightened feelings of fear and stress that go along with them passes in a normal situation. But with an anxiety disorder, these feelings and things that go along with them are even more heightened, persistent, and interfere with everyday life. I heard the story. Imagine you're at a road you need to cross, and everyone's crossing it. But you see trucks, cars, buses coming from the right and the left. It's real to you, so you are paralyzed. The difference between being able to control the worries are neurotransmitters in the brain. Lots of neurons firing off in the wrong direction. The brain misfires and continues to send signals of fear instead of stopping, as it would for a normal amount of anxiety and fear. It's if you don't go to the kitchen right now, your house will burn down and your child will die if you don't check if the oven is off. It's for sure going to happen. They believe and already see it happening in their brain. This kind of situation is an example of OCD. Being neat and orderly doesn't make you OCD. It may be your preference to be neat. With OCD, you have the absolute need to check things or repeat certain routines, being unable to control the thoughts or activities. An eating disorder is not a game. It's not restricting yourself or trying some bad eating behaviors for a period of time. These kind of things are not the same as an actual eating disorder. Eating disorders have the highest mortality rate of any mental illness. An eating disorder is driving from restaurant to restaurant, spending $20 each time. It's learning how to lie. It's lying to cashiers about the party you're going to, but you're really not, because you have cakes and ice cream galore for your next binge. It's buying candy that the check stand lady thinks you are the worst eater and starts commenting about all the candy that you buy. It's your friend pulling candy wrappers out of your purse thinking, how much candy do you eat, Michelle? Because that's pretty much all you eat without throwing up. It's exercising for hours and hours and still hating the way you look, throwing up in places other than the toilet. It's throwing up for an hour until there's just stomach acid left. It's damaging your teeth, hurting your esophagus. It's all of that and more. And if you don't do all of that, you'd rather die than experience the pain and feelings of not doing it. With depression, it's like you fall into a black hole. Real depression, real anxiety is when everything's going right and you're experiencing those things when there is nothing even wrong. The seriousness of it is every 3 seconds someone takes their own life because of depression. There's way too many pages to try to memorize all these facts, so I am stuck reading it like this, so I apologize. It is the chicken pox you don't beat. It's once and it's gone forever. It's the same for all mental illness. It's something that you live in. You get used to putting on a mask, and you continue to live among people. When you start to struggle putting on a play every day, and that is why you fall deeper and deeper and slowly start to back away from people. You feel as though you'll never be happy again. You don't have the ability to access hope anymore. The scariest part is what you really fear the most. It isn't the sickness, it's the stigma, it's the shame. It's the embarrassment, it's the look on your friend's face. It's the things that will be said about you by some. That's what keeps you from getting help. That's what helps you hide it. The stigma is very real. Another thing I heard is you think stigma isn't real. Ask yourself this: would you rather make your next Facebook post that you're having a tough time getting out of bed because you hurt your back, or having a tough time getting out of bed because you're depressed and your anxiety is too bad and you're having a panic attack? Because we live in a world where if you break your arm, everyone runs over to your cast to sign it. But if you tell people you're depressed or having a panic attack, everyone runs the other way. We are so accepting of any other body part breaking down, other than our brains, and that's just ignorance. If you can't see it, it's not really there kind of thing going on. With this kind of thinking, it reinforces the stigma. This is a big reason why people come to a point where they think it's easier to take their life than deal with the ridicule on top of the disease they already are stuck living with. No other disease has this to deal with on top of the disease itself, but mental illness. People with mental illness are not less than. They are what you see. They are not what you see in the movies. They are mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, not some freaky person. They are far more dangerous to themselves than they ever are to anyone else. One person dies every 30 seconds by their own hand, which is more than cancer and HIV combined. They did not choose it to be sick. They don't have it because they're too weak or didn't try to pray hard enough. They're human sponges. They soak up everything. They have the ability to feel in such a greater way. They have the biggest hearts. They have bigger amounts of empathy. They are extra sensitive and can see through anything. They see it before many others do. If you remember a show called Monk, that's them. They can see things happening way before the average person can see it. That is where our minds make up in these areas for where we lack. Mental illnesses are real. They're real in the Christian, and they're real in the Christian church. But the Mental Health Grace Alliance says that research reveals 3 to 40% of those with a mental illness seeking assistance from a church are told mental disorders are not real. Yet 1 in 5 live with a mental illness. 450 million people are currently suffering from mental illness. Serious mental health is ravaging through our congregations, and we still fail to see it or recognize the reality of it. Yet, when churches are the most likely, the first place the affected will go for help, just like we did. Helping people affected by mental illness is part of your church's mission and calling. Lifeway research found that 35% of Americans and 48% of those who identified themselves as evangelicals believed that people with serious mental disorders can overcome their illness with Bible study and prayer alone. People in the church that don't really have the foggiest idea about it all of a sudden become scholars and students of it. And it can tell you you're going through it, obviously because you're in sin. They all go Job's friend on you real quick. Just pray more. Just read your Bible more, Michelle. This is the mindset of many sectors of the church, and we would never say that to anyone with diabetes or something else. This is not demons. This is not sin. It can be sin, but we need to know how to tell the differences between each other. The churches, some of them are scared to deal with it, scared to talk about it, because it's like we're scared to give people a ticket to sin. We need to be very serious about sin, but we need to be educated to know what a mental illness is and that it's not sin. You cannot just pray it away. Jesus can take anything away, any disease away, Anything is possible with Jesus, but until it's that time or in that person's will with God, that person's life, it will remain a disease in that person, just like with any other disease. Just like Paul prayed 3 times for his thorn to be taken from him. In 2 Corinthians 12:8, Jesus essentially said no to Paul's prayers. When Jesus instead answered in verse 9 with, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." So Jesus chose not to hear Paul or take his thorn away, but rather assure him that he can live with the thorn in Jesus, and his power will be there alongside Paul, going through his suffering. And that is sufficient. That was his will for Paul. But we can't walk alongside them and love like Jesus said to do when it's not real to some or talked about, or we're not learning the facts about mental illness, so it stays the elephant in the room every Sunday. Yet Jesus was restoring people who were suffering even from mental disorders. Jesus went into every village, preaching and teaching. And healing. And 1/3 of his ministry was healing. This is not new. The church has been carrying for 2,000 years, as Rick Warren reminded us. The Christians invented the hospital. The early years of the fall of the Roman Empire, when the Black Plague began to come into the cities, the people began to flee from the cities, but the Christians moved into the cities to care for those who were sick. And that's where they made the famous statement recorded in history, "See how they love each other." The church doesn't feel prepared, and they're not psychologists, but they can utilize resources like the National Institute of Mental Health that provides up-to-date information. Team up with a psychologist so when somebody comes to you, you can refer to them, but also stay a part of that walk with them. Don't just get out of the loop and walk away. They need reassurance and hope. You will still be by their side as well. To provide hope and help that you can provide. They can't run from the problem because they are not the psychologists. Instead, with the love in Christ, with the discernment of Scripture, engage in these issues. With the 1/4 of congregations dealing with this disease, we cannot be silent, and we need to be ready to help the hurting that are not finding the help they need. As Micah 7:8 says, we need to help the sick and stop lives from being lost. Jesus said in so many ways for us to be loved, like he is love. Jesus Christ is the only reason I am here standing today. Thank you.